Good morning and welcome to the Committees on Mental Health, jointly with Youth Services. At this time, we ask if you could please place phones on vibrate or silent mode. Thank you for your cooperation. Chairs, we are ready to begin.
Good morning. I'm Councilmember Althea Stevens, Chair of New York City Council Committee on Youth Services. I'm joined by Councilmember Lee, Chair of Mental Health and Disabilities and Addiction Committee. And we're also joined by Councilmember Chiosei and Councilmember Shawn Abreu. After-school program provides an essential layer of support to students and has been proven that students who participate in these programs do better academically in school. Thus, it is essential that all young people have access to after-school program regardless of their disabilities. Studies have shown the after-school program benefits students by strengthening their connections with peers, increasing their confidence, and developing important workforce skills. Those programs are also imperative for families as they provide reliable childcare that allows parents to remain in the workforce. However, New York City families of children with disabilities face unique boundaries to participating in after-school programming. Parents struggle to identify local programming dedicated to supports for their children, difficulties ensuring that the program has appropriate trained staff, complicated securing transportation to and from after-school programs. We must erase the burdens on parents by strengthening and expanding after-school program for students with disabilities. And I believe one way to do is improving city programming by giving after-school program providers the tools they need to do their jobs effectively. As a former after-school program provider, I speak to this direct engagement, education, and discipline students who require personalized attention and dedicated services. In conversations with DYCD contracted after-school providers, staff said central challenges to serving students with disabilities are skilled staff and poor communication between DOE and DYCD. Providers are struggling to identify higher trained paraprofessionals to serve those students, even though DOE has a pool of paraprofessionals and substitute paraprofessionals. Additionally, because providers are denied access to students with IEPs, which contains critical information about their mandated accommodations, parents must proactively share the child's IEPs or voice the necessary modifications to ensure children's needs are met. The onus of accommodating a student's needs should not lie with the parent, but DOE and DYCD. My goal for today's hearing is to facilitate and encourage greater collaboration between those agencies to ensure after-school program providers have the resources they need to meet the needs of students with disabilities. I would like to thank committee staff for their hard work in preparing for this hearing, policy analyst Elizabeth Arts and committee counsel Christina Yamenti, as well as the A-team back in the district office. And now I would like to also acknowledge Councilmember Riley, and I would like to now pass it off to Councilmember Lee, who will have opening statements.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Stevens. Good morning, everyone. My name is Linda Lee, Chair of the Mental Health, Disabilities, and Addictions Committee, and I'd like to begin by thanking my colleague, Chair Althea Stevens of the Committee on Youth Services, and everyone else for joining us today for this important hearing on after-school program support for youth with disabilities. And I think we all know the value of after-school activities and out-of-school, also known as OST programming, cannot be overstated. We know that OST programs positively, impact educational outcomes and have been shown to increase social and emotional learning for students with disabilities. And in my first year of grad school, I interned at a Beacon program, so I know personally how important these programs are and how much they add value to the students as well as the families that they serve. But we also recognize the barriers that providers face when trying to accommodate students with disabilities into after-school programs, and this is something that Councilmember Stevens and I know all too well, coming from the social services sector prior to our roles here. It is a heartbreaking conversation to tell families that despite wanting to help, they just don't have the level of training, supports, and resources to adequately care for some of these students safely. No family and no provider should have to face this decision, and it is imperative that the city agencies communicate with each other so that these students and their families receive the proper support so that they can participate equally and effectively in the city's after-school programs. I look forward to learning more about the process and ways that the committee and council can best support the agencies that work with this population to improve access for students with disabilities to these vital after-school programs. And I will say, I understand how siloed and complicated the systems can be in both the city versus the state, and what we can do as a city versus the state, and that funding is always going to be a challenge. But even with that, I'm excited to have this hearing today specifically to talk about ways, even despite those barriers, that we can find ways to improve and provide better services for our students. So I want to thank representatives from the Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities, the Department of Youth and Community Development, and Department of Education, along with other interested stakeholders and members of the public, including advocates, volunteers, and any individuals with lived experience who have taken the time to join us today. We look forward to hearing from you. And finally, I would like to thank the Mental Health Disabilities and Addiction Committee staff who worked to prepare this hearing. Legislative Counsel Sarah Sucher, sitting right next to me, Senior Legislative Policy Analyst Christy Dwyer, Alicia Miranda, Financial Analyst, and I will now turn it back over to my colleague, Chair Stevens.
I would like to acknowledge Councilmember Alexa Vilas, who just joined us, and I will turn it over to committee staff to swear in.
We will now hear testimony from the administration. Before we begin, I will administer the affirmation. Panelists, please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you. You may begin when ready.
Good morning, Chairs Stevens and Lee, and members of the Committees on Youth Services and Mental Health, Disabilities, and Addiction. I'm Susan Haskell, Deputy Commissioner for Youth Services at the Department of Youth and Community Development. I'm joined by Wanda Asherle, Assistant Commissioner for Community Centers, and my colleagues from DOE. On behalf of Commissioner Howard, thank you for this opportunity to discuss after-school program support for youth with disabilities. DYCD greatly values the importance of after-school programs for the city's young people. We know after-school programs provide many benefits, such as development of positive self-esteem, identification of skills and interests, and social-emotional growth. Our dedicated network of nonprofit providers serve youth with a range of diverse abilities in their programs. As you know, DYCD's 3 largest after-school programs are Beacon Community Centers, Compass, and Cornerstone Community Centers. Compass is the largest after-school program area and offers a mix of academic, recreational, and cultural activities for young people in the afternoons, on holidays, and during the summer, serving elementary, middle, and high school-aged youth. The nearly 900 programs are located in schools, community centers, parks, detention facilities, and NYCHA centers. Yes. How's this? In addition to Compass, Beacon and Cornerstone Community Centers offer comprehensive programs during the school year and summertime and include services for adults and families. Launched under Mayor Dinkins, Beacon Community Centers have become a national model. Beacons are collaborative school-based community centers operating services after school in the evenings and on weekends. They were created in the early 1990s in response to concerns about crime in New York City. There are currently 92 Beacons. Cornerstone programs offer services for public housing residents of all ages in 99 New York City Housing Authority community centers. Cornerstones help youth participants by offering academic and enrichment activities to help them thrive, including to graduate from high school, succeed in the workplace, and develop leadership and civic engagement skills to give back to the community. Activities include homework help, STEAM activities, high school and college prep, community beautification, mentoring, performing arts and sports. Last year, Compass, Beacon, and Cornerstones enrolled nearly 200,000 youth. These programs are complemented by other DYCD-funded initiatives. For example, Saturday Night Lights program. SNL is a summer program that provides access to free youth sports programming on Saturday nights at 140 locations throughout the city. In addition, this past summer, the city enrolled more than 110,000 young people in Summer Rising 2023, a partnership between New York City Public Schools and DYCD. Students in Summer Rising receive both academic and enrichment programming over the course of the day, including field trips, arts activities, and outdoor recreation. After-school programs must provide all children an equal opportunity to participate in services. Equity and access to services is a hallmark of Commissioner Howard's vision for DYCD. Commissioner Howard has met with Commissioner Curry from Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities about training for nonprofit organizations, such as how to build accessible program space. We are pleased to be joined by their General Counsel, Emily Sweet. As the committees know, disabilities take many forms and include physical, learning, or developmental challenges. Some young people, for example, have special education needs, mobility challenges, and visual and/or hearing impairment. A student's disability classification may not impact services or program participant. Rather, in compliance with applicable laws, DYC needs providers focus on how each student can best be served in a program, and if necessary, what each youth requires as an accommodation in order to participate successfully in the program. Parents and caregivers are in the best position to help programs understand their child needs. To best meet those needs upon application to a program, applicants have the opportunity to share information about their child, including in response to a series of health and disability questions, so our providers can tailor service delivery. This includes whether their child has a disability, any allergies, asthma, or special health care needs, whether it takes medication, or whether there are activities the applicant cannot participate in, or if they will benefit from an accommodation. Parents may choose to share the student's individual education plan if they feel it will be helpful in better understanding their child needs. All DYCD-funded programs serve youth with disabilities. Some of DYCD's programs are funded specifically to serve students with special needs, and DYCD also funds organizations which specialize in serving youth with disabilities. DYCD offers trainings and resources to support programs to engage all young people actively in programming. We have provided trainings to free of charge through our capacity building unit, including through providers like Vibrant, PACE, and Include NYC. DYCD also partners with city agencies, including New York City Public Schools Special Education Office, to train and support providers. For example, this spring, SEO provided coaching on-site and in-person professional learning, including how to develop a plan for working with students with disabilities. One focused on students on the autism spectrum, and a second session focused on related services and sensory supports. New York City Public Schools has a range of webinars available to CBO staff, including Introduction to Verbal Behavior, Executive Function, Creating Safe Spaces, and Strategies that Support Attention. New York City Public Schools Office of School Health also supports DYCD-funded programs, assisting to facilitate the 504 process, where a student may be entitled to additional support in Compass school-based programs. DYCD created a disability resource guide to help CBO staff, youth, and families access support in a range of areas from education and housing, mental health, and professional development. As noted earlier, Summer Rising is a partnership between NYCPS and DYCD that enrolled more than 110,000 participants this past summer in a model that provides both academic and enrichment activities guided by teachers and CBO staff. Summer Rising offered new opportunities to expand summer services for students with disability, including students with extended school year services and in District 75. Roughly 30,000 students with disabilities enrolled in Summer Rising this year, including students with autism spectrum disorder and ESY and D75 students who participated in CBO-led enrichment activities. DYCD and New York City Public Schools, including through a partner organization, Change Impact, offered a range of live and self-paced workshops to support CBO line staff and leadership to better understand and accommodate special needs, such as understanding disability, introduction to autism spectrum disorder, positive behavior management, behavior and de-escalation strategies, and modifying the environment for all learners. Trainings cover topics such as how to communicate successfully, how to use materials to make activities inclusive, how to establish routines, and how to break down tasks for students and help them organize information. Thank you once again for the opportunity to testify. We are pleased to answer your questions today.
Thank you. So I'm actually going to start with DOE. I have some questions for you. Mayor Adams have ordered all city agencies to make significant cuts to their annual budgets. Among the recent announcements proposed are the reduction of Summer Rising hours, cutting $20 million in funding from the programming. Summer Rising is a joint effort between DOE and DYCD, which served 110,000 students last year. How are the agencies planning to address the upcoming challenges, and do the agency have plans to or resources to place or supplement offset the proposed cuts to Summer Rising?
Thank you, Chair.
That was a DOE question.
Oh, thank you.
Always ready. They're in the hot seat right now.
Thank you, Chair Stevens. My name is Jay Liu, so I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships in the Office of Support and Wellness team with New York Public Schools. I don't want to misspeak, so I would actually have to look into this and get back to you on it.
So wait, what do you have to look into?
I'm sorry?
What do you mean you have to look into it? Because this was proposed last week, and so you guys should know the answers of like what the plan is and how you're planning for these cuts. So this actually, to me, is we should know the answers to this.
Well, Chair, if I may chime in, and by the way, Jay was an esteemed staff member at DYCD until very recently when he came to DOE.
Oh, he jumped ship?
And it always helps our collaboration and our coordination when we have teams coming from one place or the other. This is still planned to be the biggest summer enrichment programming. There were proposed cuts to hours for middle school students. I think we'll make the best of those available resources. And we don't have any additional information about, supplementing or offsetting that. We're just going to make the best of the resources that we have.
And what does that mean, make the best of it? Because, I think, and even talking to providers for the last 2 summers, are we thinking about looking at possibly going back into a model that we were pre-COVID, where it was a more focus with providers and not so much of this collaboration with DOE, because I know that was a big part of the budget. I think that, when it first started out, it made a lot of sense because young people hadn't been in school for about a year, but now us being back into the rhythm of things, are we looking to go more towards where providers were handling summer and having less DOE intervention?
I think the final model will look similar to years past and also incorporate some changes. And we are still working out the details and processing the changes to the budget that have just recently been announced. But we will be, again, maximizing the resources and the experience, to your point, for young people.
Yeah, because I'm really concerned about, especially with the cutting of middle school students. I think, when you think about years ago when it was a big thing around like we needed to have after school program for all middle school students, and then we're looking at a time where we have the juvenile justice centers at 95% capacity, those are the young people we should be reaching. And so how are we making sure that the programs that we have are serving the kids that need to be served, right? And understanding that we are in budget constraints. So I'm very concerned with that and thinking about how do we ensure that these young people aren't lost in the shuffle, right? Especially because we know with summer rising, a lot of middle school students weren't interested in that. And then because of the model in which SYEP is set up and they're only getting a stipend, a lot of young people haven't been signing up for that. And then we have our juvenile justice systems filling up at that same time. And so I think that we need to have a much more clear, concrete plan of what the summer looks like, specifically for middle school students, especially during this time. So I know these announcements were just made, but these are not new announcements around we were gonna have to tighten our budget. So we really need to make sure that in the next couple of weeks we have an actual plan that we can be rolling out, because as you guys know, planning for summer starts in January. So time is ticking. We definitely need to make sure we have a plan moving forward. And this is another DOE question. According to providers, DOE says that agencies cannot share a student's IEP with DYCD after school providers unless a parent or guardian voluntarily consents to it. Providers explain that without access to IEPs, they are denied critical information on how to accommodate the students with disabilities. Does DOE inform parents or guardians that they must voluntarily consent to sharing their children's IEP with CBOs? And has DOE and DYCD explored creating a space on DYCD after-school application where parents or guardians can share the child's IEP information?
Good morning, Chair. My name is Ariana Jaffe. I am from I'm the Director of Research and Policy Development in the Special Education Office of the New York City Public Schools. There were a number of questions in there. At the outset, we are not permitted by law to share students' individualized education programs with outside agencies or external partners. Both health privacy and educational privacy prevent us from doing so without the parents' consent. With respect to the providers having the information they need to appropriately serve this student, There are a number of sources for information that should be sufficient for them to accommodate the student from a number of sources, and they can always ask.
And what are those sources?
In the first place, when this parent signs up the student for the after-school program, Susan may be able to speak better to this than I can.
Could you list the sources? Because I need to know where they are, because they're not on the application.
So there is, I'm sorry, could you repeat what you just said?
I'm asking you to list the sources where the parents can get this information.
So the parent must provide an application or an intake form.
Yep.
And that contains a great amount of information, and I'll let Susan take
I'm just
that
asking to
there.
list where they are, because that information isn't on the application.
The application does ask for information about whether a student has a disability. It also explores some of their like health or medication needs, if asthma, et cetera. I think the most important thing on the application is like, is there something is there accommodation that your child needs? Are there things that we need to know about your child that will help us serve them better? Does your child require any kind of accommodation?
But that's not the same question, because the question I asked was on the IEP. Is there a place where we are letting parents know that if they wish to share the IEP, that those things could happen? Because I know that's not on the application. And even with listing like health issues aren't the same as IEP for accommodations, as we all know. So those are not the same thing. And so I'm asking why we're not looking to have on an application where we're letting guardians know that if there is an IEP or some disabilities, to be able to share that information, because that is not shared. And a lot of times providers have to produce a supplemental application to get that information, because it is not on there. So yes, we understand that DOE can't share that information, but I'm asking why isn't this something that we're explicitly saying up front to parents, of saying like, hey, does your child have a disability, or things like that, so that providers could better support them in that way.
I think that is something that we can explore and take back. The suggestion to a parent right up front on the application that if they feel it's valuable, they could share the IEP voluntarily with the program. But I also want to take the opportunity to say that I think that the IEP may not always or even usually be suited to helping the young person succeed in after school. Whereas in the school day, a child's classification and their very detailed like plan, multiple pages around how to help the child meet the academic goals is rarely, I would say, necessary for a young person to be successful.
I'm going to say
in
this,
after
I
school.
beg to differ. Being in after school and not being able, one, when you have staff who actually is doing a lot of educational support and supplementing the education. And so I think when we say things like that, it kind of like takes away from the work that they're actually doing in after school, because we all know, and you know this better than, most know, that after school isn't just babysitting, right? There is educational activities going on. And so sometimes it is important, and yes, an IEP is really hard to read. That's another problem, but that's not the shit we're about to go down now. But it is hard to read, but I do think that there are sometimes things on there that is important for a provider to know, right? And have a better understanding. And so yes, the IEP, I think that we need to figure out what that looks like, whether that's just sharing it or having a conversation, but those things are critical. And I think that it's important as folks who are doing an education supplement should be aware of like what those disabilities are and how they can actually support, because we know a lot of times they're doing supplemental reading work with these young people. They're doing, all these other things, and really should be supplementing what they're learning in the day. And a lot of times, especially school-based, they're sometimes working with the teachers in those things. And so I think that to say that it isn't necessarily necessary, I think it's one, we should probably get IEPs at a place where normal people can read them as part of the problem, because even parents struggle with reading them, but also thinking about how are we then extracting the information that would be helpful to the after schools for them to be able to get access to it. Next question, local law 76/2023, sponsored by me, requires the Department of DOE to ensure an annual report on District 75 after-school programs which provide critical support to students with behavioral and challenges, including autism spectrum disorders and other sensory impaired disabilities. The report was due August 30th, 2023. As of last week, the DOE informed us that the report was done but needed to internal sign off. Is there an update on the timeline for when the council will receive this report?
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with this report, but thank you for your question. But I'll follow up with the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs and get back to you shortly.
That's disheartening. It doesn't feel like they sent you to be here prepared, so that's really disheartening. But yes, please get back to us as soon as possible about when we would get the report. I think that, you know, it's about to be December. It's 2 months, and to say that it's done and just hasn't been signed off to me sounds, you know, inappropriate. Like, how long does it take for a report to get signed off on so that we can get? It's 2 months overdue. So to me, that's really unacceptable. I think you wanted to jump in and do something, right? Okay. What information does DOE share with families of students with IEPs or 504 plans about after-school programming to ensure they're aware the program will accommodate their students? How is this information made available to them?
Thank you for your question, Chair Stevens. So our after-school programs serve all students, and we're working together with DYCD to provide additional guidance for school and CBO leaders to ensure that families are aware of their options for support and principals understand the process for requesting paraprofessionals and nursing services for students during an after-school program or other extracurricular activities, consistent with the student's IEP or Section 504 plan. So we do make sure
What does that look like in real time?
So we inform the families along with DYCD itself.
I know you guys inform the families of the program, but I'm asking, what does it look like in real time for DOE to really kind of be able to share the information so families have an understanding of what information they should share with the providers so that we can make sure that they accommodate? Because for example, I know that in some programs where there are good partnerships, especially when they're in school-based, there are principals who would say things like, I don't know if this program would be a good fit for your child, and be able to kind of walk those things through. But how are we as agencies giving parents information so that they understand what these programs could provide and what kind of supports?
One thing I would like to say there is when we are marketing after school, whether we're doing it at the DYCD level, speaking with community groups, or at the local level, sometimes between schools and CBOs, marketing directly to students through parent coordinators, or at the community-based level, reaching out to local schools and we are marketing to all students. And students with disabilities are everywhere. They're in our programs, and they're marketing after school generally, we're marketing to all students. I think there could be a suggestion about how we can continue to do even more targeted marketing. We have been working more closely with the DOE Special Ed Office than ever before over the last couple of years, and I'm sure we can look for additional ways to do more targeted outreach.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, one of the reasons why this was one of the hearings that has been on my list since I got here is because one of the most challenging things that I ever had to deal with was telling parents that this wasn't a good fit for their kid. And then them saying, oh, so can you give me a suggestion on where they could go? And then that is non-existent, right? In the sense of thinking about, yes, there are students who have severe disabilities, and so there are programs for them, but sometimes, especially with some of our young people who might have ADHD or behavior issues and things like that, the setting just isn't conducive to that. And we have not, one, provided other spaces for them to go in those cases. And we also are not really preparing parents because they're like, well, what do you mean? They're fine in school. And it's like, well, this is a different environment and it looks different. And so we are not doing a good job of, one, kind of letting parents know. I've had a lot of conversations where parents were crying, oh my God, what am I gonna do with my child? I have to work and all these other things. And they didn't have other options, and we also didn't set them up to understand what some of those challenges was. And so I think as an agency, we need to do better at like bridging the gap and also having more options for students with disabilities and not just students with severe disabilities. And so that's why I think it's important for us to be really thinking about what this looks like in real time, especially when we know we have so many students with so many different needs. And so programs should be able to accommodate the needs, and providers do that all the time, but there is a struggle and a disconnect around some of that.
Yeah, Chair Stevens, I think that you make a very good point about that there being programs, that there are some special programs for students with some severe disabilities, and then there's a lot of students, obviously students with IEPs fall on a great continuum. And also one of the goals of these extracurricular activities is to be as inclusive as possible and to provide the support that students need in order to participate fully. I think that and I've seen a number of these escalations also of parents saying that, they're concerned that their child won't be able to participate in one of these programs. And a lot of it, I think, comes down to, and this is something that, I feel very passionately about parents knowing what their rights are, and to know that at least, as far as, and this goes along with what Susan mentioned earlier in her testimony, that programs that take place in Department of Education buildings, in school buildings, they cannot discriminate against students with disabilities. They cannot exclude students with disabilities. If the student has needs that can't be supported with the current staffing or ratios that the after-school program, the CBO provides currently in their program, we can work with them to see whether they can better support the student. And under certain circumstances, if necessary, we will also work with the family and the CBO to provide additional support in the form of personnel if a student has medical needs like diabetes.
And I just want to say this. Those things are, yes, those things are often said that they could be provided, but it's not done often. It's very rare where programs are given paras. A lot of times the kids are dropped off at 2:30 or 3 o'clock, and it is now the provider's responsibility on how to facilitate that program. And I've worked in programs where we've requested paras, and they're like, we don't have any paras to give you. And then it comes out of the school's budget. It's a lot of back and forth. And so I think that, yes, all of those things are in place, and it is written down that we should be doing those things, but those accommodations aren't often met in those fashions. And even when we're thinking about the providers, they're also not given the tools or training to actually then deal with them, because it does require special training to deal with students with certain behavioral issue and issues. And so I don't necessarily think it's about discrimination. I think it's about us making sure that we are providing a safe space. And I know when I've had to have those tough conversations, it was because it was no longer safe, because we couldn't provide additional support. And so think about a young person who has a para and has a one-to-one para all day long, and then at 3 o'clock, now they're in a room with 25 other kids and are expected to stay focused and all the things when that's not what they've been doing all day. And so I think that, yes, those are the safety nets that we say are in place, but we know that those things are not happening.
And perhaps that may be something that we need to provide greater awareness for principals and school staff, so that they know that they can submit requests for paraprofessional support for students who are attending after-school programs in their buildings, and that those paraprofessionals are centrally funded. They do not come out of the school budget.
When I tell you it's so hard to get a para in an after-school program, I think I ran after school for 12 years. I had a para for one student 1 year, and that was it. And after that, we ended up having to hire the para on staff because the school said they would no longer provide it.
I think partially because of stories like that and the history of that is why we have really worked to improve our process for hiring and assigning paraprofessionals, centralizing the process, simplifying the process. And I think a lot of it is now to try and get the word out to make sure that people know that it is available, because I take your point in that, and I don't doubt that happened, and that's something that we are trying to prevent from continuing to happen.
Yeah, no, I think that it's just important for us to really make sure that this, one, is done in a much more seamless way. And also, if we already know that the student needs a para, why should we have to apply for it? Or why isn't that when the parent signs up, it should be something that's automatic? And really thinking about how do we make this process a lot more seamless, because it really isn't. I just have a couple more questions, and I'll pass it to Chair Lee, and then I'll give space for colleagues, and we'll come back, because you guys know I always have a lot of questions. In the November modification, it contains a reduction of 3,538 campus slots in FY25. How did you determine the number of slots to be cut? This is for DYCD, I'm sorry.
We make every effort to minimize any impact on service in the reductions. Again, I think I mentioned we're still working out exactly how these reductions will be implemented, but we will do our best to minimize program impact. For example, if there are seats that are unallocated, we would look to that funding first. If there are underutilized seats, we will look to those program areas first. There may be some programs who, acknowledge they're funded for more seats than they need in that specific location. We're going to do our best to minimize impact on service delivery.
Yeah, because, I think even when we're thinking about under-enrollment, that gets really tricky, especially because we haven't had RFP in so long, and thinking about, it reminds me of last year when we were talking a lot about like 3K and right sizing, and it's thinking like we clearly have a childcare shortage, and like I mentioned earlier, our juvenile justices are filling up, and so really thinking about, does these cuts, how is this going to continue to impact the city in this way? And I think that it's important, and I'm sure you guys don't take it lightly, but I think that it's really crucial for us to really think about this, and also think about a lot of the other mitigating factors that we know are contributing to some of these programs that have low enrollment. I had a hearing last month about DOH and not being able to clear staff fast enough. Like I said, we haven't had an RFP in a number of years, so we haven't been able to kind of move slots around in the way that we necessarily need it. So I think even saying low enrollment, it becomes really tricky, because we know that there's all these other mitigating factors that's contributing to low enrollment, and not just students aren't interested or these things. And so I'm definitely gonna be keeping a watchful eye on this, because I'm really concerned about what this looks like and how this is really gonna impact young people and families across the city. What is the rate for reimbursement for DYCD contracted campus providers who serve students with disabilities?
In Compass, there are different rates based on which RFP you're funded on, which grade level you're serving. There are a handful of programs, more than a handful, who responded to one RFP where they were offered additional funding beyond the PPP in that RFP to serve students with disabilities. But I think I would answer that by saying students with disabilities are being served in every program across
Agreed.
Every RFP.
Agreed, which is why I think they all should just be funded at the higher rate, but
And their contract is funded with the expectation that they'll be serving all students.
So like you said, there are providers that did this RFP specifically for students with disabilities. Are there specific trainings that they are receiving because they went after that specific RFP, and what does that training look like?
I would say not so much. I think we do a lot of training. We've been doing more and more training, working very close with Ariana and the team at DOE. But I would say the training is necessary, again, across the board. We know that youth with disability are being served in all programs. So the trainings that we're offering are open to all the Beacon, Cornerstone, and Compass programs that we fund.
But why aren't we doing, and this is just because what you just said, obviously we know already that there are students with disabilities across all the programs that are being served. So then why aren't we doing specific trainings for that for everyone, right? And what do those trainings look like? And is that part of a series? Because I think that it's important that we are equipping our staff and, group leaders and youth educators to really be able to handle some of the challenges that they do face, which are often different than, general education students. So what do those trainings look like?
I think that's an excellent question. For example, in summarizing over the past couple of years, when we've worked together to look at sites where there's a District 75 school co-located, and we know District 75 students have enrolled in the afternoon session with the CBO, then we've planned some specialized trainings. We've done many to support those programs, but we don't limit it just to those. We'll say, here are all the programs that are going to be co-located with District 75 school, and everybody's invited to this training because we all need it. Some of the fundamental ways that you can respond to students with disabilities helps all students. Behavioral issues, for example, or making accommodations for how an activity is presented. So when there are thoughts that we have about how to target the training, it always ends up being something that's going to be beneficial to all providers and open to providers.
Okay. And how often are those trainings provided?
I think we probably have done a dozen trainings at least in 2023.
And do you guys work with the MOPD? Do you guys work with that office as well when you're doing these trainings?
We've been connecting with MOPD recently to discuss, in particular, trainings for nonprofits specifically, and how to successfully support employees, including at DYCD. At this time, we haven't been working specifically on trainings to after-school providers, but we are connected with MOPD about how, what steps DYCD can do better across the board to be more accommodating.
So you guys just recently started working with that office. I feel like that's one of the most underserved, offices here, and we definitely need to figure out how to get them some more money because there's so many New Yorkers with disabilities, and that office is underutilized and under-resourced, and I think could really be helping to guide some of this work that we're talking about right now. But as we know, it's very limited. But I think that we should be using them in all the things that we're doing because we know, like you said, in all of our programs, we're serving students with disabilities, so.
Totally agree. I know Commissioner Howard has been committed to that, and they've been working on, issues to support a 5-year plan of strengthening our work to support young people and families with disabilities.
Yeah, it's really surprising that that those offices are just working now. It just drives me crazy that we have all these agencies that don't work together, and it's like if we were just working better together, all our lives would just be so much easier. I'm going to hand it over to Chair Lee right now for some questions, and I will be back in a little bit.
Thank you, Chair Stevens. I just actually wanted to go back to a question that Chair Stevens had asked earlier about why not put the question about the IEPs right up front on the application so parents know that it is an option. And again, I do think that, as Chair Stevens mentioned, the question of whether those applications are well understood or comprehended by a lot of the parents is a separate issue. But is there an incentive? And I'm not asking this to sound whatever suspicious, make it sound whatever, but I'm just very curious, like, what is the incentive for not asking that question on the application? Is it because it will sort of open up a Pandora's box, because once you ask that question, it triggers something else, like then you need to follow up and have resources and then follow up with what would be the reason not to ask that question?
I think this is something that we can revisit and discuss, but the goal of the program is to be as inclusive as possible. And again, we can revisit whether there's something to put on the form. I don't want families to feel that it's their responsibility to disclose a disability classification. That's not important in coming to the program. It's an inclusive program. Everybody is welcome. What the CBO really needs to know is how can we support your child. There's a lot of information in the IEP that a family probably or may not want to share. There's very personal information about the family. There's psychosocial information. There can be. I don't know if we're in a position where we really want to we welcome a parent. I think what we need to let the parent know is we welcome any information that you have that you want to make available to the program to help them serve the young person better. I don't know if we want to focus on the IEP.
But but that response seems a little counterintuitive to me, because I think in order to be inclusive and serve the students the best way that we can, it's good to have that information available, and they can choose not to answer it, right? But the fact that the question is there, it triggers to me as a parent, for example, to know, oh, okay, so maybe this is something that will provide better coordination or services for my kids in the after-school setting. So I guess I don't know, I think the way I think of it is actually the opposite, is that it would be more informative or helpful to the student. And also to Althea's point, like, I've worked in, nonprofit settings, that's where I spent my whole career. So if I, as a social worker, am walking into a classroom and I don't know that this student has an IEP that could have been made available if the parents knew about it, I think that would be very helpful for me to know that in terms of how to approach, because I don't think it's exclusive, meaning we're not going to accept them. It's just a question of, well, then how do we better prepare for meeting their needs in the after-school setting, right? Or is it, sorry.
It's something we could consider, and
Okay.
encouraging families to share all information, including if they think information on the IEP would be helpful, then we would want them to share that.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just wondering if there was, because I know the workforce, which actually I'll jump into that question, because I know that, for example, in the mental health sector, workforce is a huge issue. I'd say one of the biggest issues that we have right now, because there's just simply not enough professionals in the field to accommodate the cases and the needs that are out there. And so regarding the struggle to hire paraprofessionals, and this could be either for DOE or DYCD, but how can you share, or what's the way, in your opinion, to tackle this? And I guess I'm just going to ask a series of questions, because I'm just trying to understand what the core issue is. Is it a lack of professionals? Like, in other words, are there currently enough professionals to begin with, paraprofessionals, to accommodate the students that are in the school system now with disabilities, number one? And I guess my follow-up question to that is, what is the challenge? Is it the licensing? Is it the pay? Is it both? And then if it's the licensing aspect, are there things that DOE can consider to alleviate that challenge of getting more people onboarded? And so just wanted to put that out there in terms of why, like, where's the roadblock, I guess, the barrier?
I am not aware of a shortage of paraprofessionals able to serve students in after-school programs. From my understanding is that any request for paraprofessional has been filled. I can certainly take back any concerns or any specific situations that you may have encountered. As far as hiring trained staff for the DYCD programs, I'll have to defer to Susan, but as we mentioned before, we do provide training and support for all, both new and existing staff, in helping to support students with disabilities. And they are, and staff can take advantage of these programs, these training programs, even when they aren't being held in person. We have asynchronous trainings, webinars that they can take advantage of as well.
Okay, and then I'm assuming that, and the process is relatively smooth. So, for example, if there is a DYCD after-school program, they need a para. If they reach out to you all, then that's something that, that they would be able to send over if requested, right? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to transition a little bit to our favorite topic, which I know has been in past hearings about the school buses. So there's about nearly 100,000 students with disabilities who ride city-run school buses every day. And it was reported that more than a dozen New York City families of students with disabilities filed a federal lawsuit against DOE for failing to provide them with reliable bus service. And we know that bus delays for students result in absenteeism, lost hours in the classroom, and after-school activities. So can you talk a little bit about the reason and the cause for these delays? in terms of the bus services?
We can't speak to specific instances on behalf of OPT. However, I can say that our mission in the DOE is to ensure that students arrive to school safely and on time and ready to learn. And it's unacceptable when that doesn't happen, and they strive to ensure that it happens as little as possible, if at all.
For the incidences that you have heard of or do know about, what has been done to remove some of the barriers, I guess, that are preventing the students, such as bus paraprofessionals, from participating in their daily educational and after-school activities? And have there been any issues if they need to be transferred from one school to another for their school setting versus after school? Are there cases where there were issues with the bus pickup and drop off there as well?
That I would have to take back to OPT. You're asking about students being picked up from school and then taken to another, to an after-school program. I'll have to go back to OPT to ask if there have been issues with that. And I know that we're constantly working with our related service agencies and within the Department of Education to ensure that we have a sufficient number of transportation paraprofessionals to support students with disabilities who need them.
Okay. Great, thank you. And I actually had some questions for MOPD, which I know we have representatives. Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, so they're going to swap.
They're going to swap for a sec, yeah. Sorry.
And we just need to swear her in.
Okay.
Hi, good morning. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you.
Hello, thanks for joining us, Emily. And I just want to echo what Chair Stevens was saying, which is something I've brought up in the past disabilities hearings, which is that we know your agency is severely underfunded, and I think it went up from 800-something thousand to about 2.3 or 5 million, which is good, but still not enough. So, given the challenges of the funding of your agency, it's something where I'd like to hear more from you on the challenges of the trainings or what we can do to better try to advocate for those trainings, because the way I see it in my head, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that MOPD, you guys are the experts when it comes to a lot of the disabilities issues in the city. And so, given that it's a challenge, how do we better sort of streamline this process of perhaps you all overseeing the trainings and even having like a train the trainer type model, right? Where if you guys do the trainings for some of the DYCD, DOE staff to better serve the students, then what would you need, I guess, is my question. I'm kind of going off script a little bit, but what would you need in order to have a better process to be able to train, and this goes also for DYCD and DOE, right? Like how would you see that relationship better working, or, what is it that you would need from MOPD in terms of guidance?
Do you want to speak to this, or, okay. You're looking at both of us, but
Yeah.
no, I'll just say that our agencies have, as Susan testified, have recently started discussing this and exploring how MOPD can best support DYCD in this process and also coordinate with DOE. So these are all things that we're exploring, so I don't think that we really have any specifics to speak to right now, but we can report back at some point.
Okay. Not that you have to go into detail, but what are some of the types of programmings that you're thinking about, or trainings, I guess, to improve how the after-school programs can serve the students better?
I really don't have any specifics on that. I know that Susan did testify as to making program space accessible. It was one thing that did come up, but we're certainly open to exploring, how we can support DYCD in any way.
Okay, great. Okay, so can you elaborate? I know that there are legal protections that youth with disabilities are provided under federal, state, and local laws. So can you elaborate on the legal protections when it comes to participating in after-school programs and extracurricular activities?
So I think it's pretty well outlined in the committee report, which I just took a quick look at. But basically, as was stated in the committee report, federal, state, and local laws protect youth with disabilities from discrimination based on their disability, on a record of disability, or even appearing to have a disability. And the laws also require reasonable accommodations, which we've been talking a lot about, to be made to enable a youth with a disability to participate, if that can be provided without posing an undue hardship on the provider.
And in what you've seen so far through some of the programming and your feedback that maybe you've been hearing from students or parents, what are some common barriers to accommodating students under these federal laws in academic and non-academic settings?
So I can't speak specifically to that today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you be able to get a response back to us? With if we followed up with you, can you get a response back?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is, I sort of jumped ahead because my first question was actually the next one that is, but let me dig in a little deeper. So I think you answered the first part of the question, which is currently, it seems like you guys are just starting to talk with DYCD and DOE for conducting any sort of trainings. Is that something you have been doing or not yet?
So we have conducted, there was a training for DYCD senior staff, but nothing to my knowledge specifically for providers or, right.
Okay. I'm hoping that this is something that can be included in part of your discussions, because I know that, especially the provider, on the provider CBO side, they may not have as much training as needed. And so if that can somehow be incorporated into that plan, I think that would be great for us to be able to see that.
Sure, we'll definitely take a look at that.
Okay. Do you have a list of providers that serve students with disabilities that you can share with DYCD? And I think this sort of alludes to what Chair Stevens was saying, is that I think oftentimes information may get lost. And so if there are parents and families who are part of these after-school programs, is there a way that list of providers could easily be shared?
So I believe DOE or DYCD may have testified to a list of providers who had provided assistance and training and resources. We can take a look at that list and see if we can supplement it in any way.
Yes, that was going to be my follow-up, is that if you guys can sort of cross-check each other's lists, because I'm sure that there may be some additional resources that we can add on to there. And so if that's something that can be looked at and then also shared with the families when they apply, that would be great too. Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand it back over to you.
I would like to acknowledge Councilmember Bottcher, Councilmember Hanif, Caban, and O'Mealy. And I just wanted to, before I hand it over to colleagues for questioning, wanted to go back to busing really quickly, because I know that there had been challenges in the past with students who took the bus, and I know that they're not here, but I'm just trying to figure out, has the policy been changed? I know a lot of students weren't able to participate in after schools because if they took the bus, it's a certain time it has to leave, and so a lot of times they would have to leave early. Has that policy been changed? Are students allowed to stay in after school now, and the buses are picking them up at like 5:30? Have we worked that out? Just wanted to get a follow-up around that in the bus.
Thank you. My understanding is currently there are no contracts with bus companies to provide service at 5:30. If students stay for after school, they will be provided a MetroCard to be accompanied home, but the DOE will fund transportation home in the form of a MetroCard. And my understanding from OPT is that they are still assessing other possibilities to facilitate transportation home for students with disabilities. They understand that this is a need.
Yeah, because it's
And
gonna
I'll
need.
make a personal plug for Accessorite also, that we
Yeah,
don't.
let's make that plug. And Fist Accessoride too. They had my mother waiting outside the other day. But yeah, I definitely think that it's really important for us to really look at that, because I know there are a lot of students who do take the bus, and so parents then have to decide if they're gonna do the busing service or if their child are gonna be in after school. And like I stated before, like after school isn't just for kids to like hang out or babysitting services. It's actually education enrichment, and we know that students who are in after school program actually, you know, do better in school and at life and all these other things. So we need to make sure that we're making it accessible and truly accessible to all the students in the city. I have more questions, but I'm gonna pass it off to my colleagues. Okay. Councilmember Aviles.
Thank you, chairs, for this important hearing. Thank you all for being here. I wanted to go back to the discussion around paraprofessionals. I was truly surprised to hear that you were not aware of any para shortage, because on the ground, it takes months and months to find a para, and sometimes much longer than that. So can you tell us how many paras does DOE currently have on its roll? Would you be able to provide the council with also their distribution across the city by borough?
Are you speaking paraprofessionals during the school day?
Yes, and then what's available for after school?
We can come back and give you those numbers.
Great, because I have had a number of children not be able to be served because there are no paras for them during after-school time. So, and including during school, which is a huge problem. So shocking to hear that you were not aware of the shortage.
And we can certainly work on any escalation that you've heard of where there's an issue with finding a para, because we also do have a cascade for providing paraprofessionals if there aren't, you know, if a paraprofessional isn't available who is a DOE staff member, to look to our contract agencies to provide paraprofessionals. So wherever there is a need, a gap in service, we look to fill it. So
right, we'd love to see those breakdowns, and also to see how many requests you receive on an annual basis for paras, both one-to-one paras and the other classifications.
for after school.
For both. I know this hearing is in the context of after school, and I can come back to the Education Committee and ask you the same question again, but I'm going to ask it again for during school and after school. Both have gaps. We've seen them on the ground all the time, and I'm really curious why your presentation does not acknowledge that there are gaps.
And I'm sorry for if I hesitated before. I got caught when you said about requests for paraprofessionals during the school day, because if a student has an IEP, it would be an IEP recommendation and not something that would have to be requested separately.
Yeah,
it would be a recommendation.
We know that children with IEPs have a large amount of mandated services that the city is supposed to be providing that are still very much unmet on multiple fronts. So I guess I'm reacting to DOE is not aware of a para shortage. I'm just utterly surprised by that. But let's move on to, in terms of the students with disabilities that are enrolled in DYCD contract programs, do we know how many students were either told to move to another program or were not able to be accommodated because of their IEP status or special needs?
No, I don't have that information. I am not aware of any student who was turned away. I acknowledge that there may be situations on the ground, but I am not aware of any situation like that. I would like, to Ariana's point, we'd like to hear about situations where the CBO is struggling, especially if there are safety concerns. We can hear about it through Community Connect, through 311. Very often, issues are escalated from the CBO to the program manager, the DYCD staff person, to say, hey, we need help with this. Or someone can reach out to the DYCD ADA coordinator. We are going to continue to make every effort in those instances to find accommodations to make sure that young person can be successful.
I appreciate that. I've seen on the ground parents be turned away because the program couldn't reasonably accommodate, but never offered an option or offered an option in the Bronx or somewhere that parents couldn't get to with no bus service and all kind of other things. So I'd love to maybe follow up around that. In terms of one thing you mentioned, our DOE partners, was a parent bill of rights. Do you actually provide a parent bill of rights to parents when they're enrolling in these programs so that they are aware of their rights proactively?
That's a question for after school, right?
I guess our DOE colleague noted the importance of parents understanding their rights. So I was wondering if that is something that is provided with the package of information. For either you, I guess DYCD, I've seen the packets many times. I've never seen a parent bill of rights anywhere to be found.
I think, through the application process, we want to get from parents, like where their child's needs are, where their accommodations are. I think that there was a good point lifted up earlier about marketing, making sure we're doing more targeted marketing to students with disabilities. And maybe also we need to do more targeted notification about the opportunities people do have to reach out for support.
Or just their rights.
Yeah.
Just offering parents clear articulation of what their rights are up front, I think would probably help that conversation as well. Chair, if I may, just one more. Actually, I have a ton of questions. In terms of the training that's provided, can you give us a clearer sense of what are the mandated trainings? How often do they occur? So essentially, what I see is perhaps one senior staff member at a site has received the training, and all the other youth workers are very untrained, wonderful people, and trying to do the best they can, but really don't have the tools that they need in order to really successfully engage with children with special needs. So can you tell me how the training goes, and then if it's mandated, and does everybody get trained, and how does the program DYCD follow up to ensure that folks are receiving the supports? And do you utilize D75 teachers who are truly expert and have a credible range of tools in these trainings?
We have relied on our colleagues at DOE to do trainings. New York City Public Schools is probably the best resource we have for doing trainings for providers. If you're an after-school provider who is school-age childcare licensed with OCFS, there are mandated trainings that are required, including around behavioral management. And as I mentioned, like throughout the year, we will offer a range of training supports through some nonprofit partners as well.
But is everybody at the site mandated to be trained? And how often do the follow-up? Like, I'm thinking about the youth workers that I have seen engage and really have very little ongoing training, and they're the ones that are directly interacting with young people.
Each site, each program for their SAC license with OCFS is required to have mandated trainings, yeah.
And how often are they revisited? Is it, and what does that mandated training look like? Is it a 2-hour online course?
It's a good question. I know OCFS has a menu of trainings available online for staff to participate in. I don't think that we feel that we're looking to try to seek a minimum. We feel responsible to provide ongoing trainings for CBOs to support them in their own efforts to train staff, with DYCD like pulling centralized trainings together just to help facilitate that coordination and reach as many of the staff people in each program as possible.
So is it justice by zip code? I don't understand like what that means.
I will add that we encourage, because the landscape of CBOs is huge, right? There's like tons of staff. So we encourage providers to at least enroll, participant mode. And we encourage providers to send at least 3 staff members by site. The idea behind that is that there's at least some because there's turnover, we want to make sure that there's some form of retention. And because we offer trainings throughout, they can rotate around the number of staff that they send to these sessions. But we encourage them to send at least 3, more than 3 people at a time.
Got it. So I guess I hear that, and I understand the capacity constraints for the providers. At the same time, it doesn't offer a basis of quality control for everyone to have a sufficient amount of training necessary to really be fully competent in the skills and tools. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you. And I just wanted to also just mention, like, I know when I've had to have some of those difficult conversations and working with my program manager, even them having a hard time too, because they understood the limited amount of programs that did provide support for students with disabilities. And so, we have to really get to a place where we are thinking about how do we make sure that there's other options if one program doesn't fit, because sometimes it might even just be that program and things like that, and sometimes we're not giving them options. But I would say my program manager was very diligent and around like trying to help and support, and even with the family and a lot of these providers, it's a really hard decision to even make the decision around asking a young person not to be in a program. And like I said, that was probably one of the hardest things that I had to do when I had to ask a parent to leave, because it just wasn't safe. But I think that it also puts the provider and DYCD in a really interesting position because we don't have other options. And so we really need to get to a place where we're thinking about where some of these other options are. Councilmember Hanif?
Thank you, Chair Stevens, and thank you so much for being here. I want to understand, going back to one of Chair Stevens' earlier questions from the DOE about the annual report on the D75 after-school programs. Are you able to share findings at least? That's right. The report was supposed to have been released earlier this year, and then it was shared with us that it is available but not yet released to the public.
Yes, again, I did it again. It's like when I'm in a Teams meeting and I'm talking with mute on for about 5 minutes. Sorry. I will have to go back to, as Jay said, I have to go back to the Intergovernmental Affairs team and find out what the status is. And we are going to be getting the report to you as quickly as possible.
Got it. And then who would be sort of like available to speak to the council on those findings? Because it doesn't seem like you are. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And I was not personally involved with the report. I know that it was vetted and signed off on by a number of high-level DOE staff members, including Superintendent Louison. But I will get the information for you about who would be the best person to speak to the contents.
That would be great. I'd really like to push on making sure that that report is released before the end of this year, and that findings are shared with us as urgently as possible. And if you can put us in touch with the point person at the DOE, that would be really helpful to us. This is really critical, and a number of us supported that legislation to ensure that we better understand our learning from the lessons of D75 schools and can better prepare as we move forward. I wanted to highlight an elementary school in my district, the Brooklyn New School, which has an active disability awareness club. It encompasses students with disabilities across the spectrum of physical, invisible, ADHD to developmental, and it includes their friends. And I had the honor of recently sitting with them and even more surprised to witness the teacher who facilitates the club, Christelle Kubart, who is the school's speech language teacher, and she's also on her own accord a disability activist. And the school at BNS has been, the club at BNS has been advocating for an elevator. That's why I had come in. They wanted to pitch that project. So I'm trying to, I'd like to understand, you know, as much as we talk about after-school programs being inclusive, can you share any updates on just our work for schools to be much more accessible by students? And what you can share about the progress of ensuring that our schools are physically made to be able to be welcoming from the front of the gates to inside the halls and classrooms.
I can certainly bring that back to our building accessibility team, who is constantly working to improve the accessibility of both existing and new DOE buildings. And I can get back to you about that building specifically. That is and also if you can give me the name, I'll get the details from you.
I'm happy to share,
and I'll
for
find
sure.
it.
I just wanted to make a broader point that the work to make sure that our after-school programming is accessible also should include the conversation of our school buildings being accessible. And that so many are inaccessible. And what I loved hearing from these students at this club was that they're sad, or they're like, they know that so many students can't be in their school because of their disability. And to know that these students so compassionately are thinking about those who are not even in their classroom was really touching, but I think it really speaks to the work that needs to be done by our city to ensure that from after-school programming to the physical buildings and the urban planning of our schools must change to make sure that students feel that they belong. And that we are doing everything in our power as leaders and school administrators to ensure that that future is possible. And a final question, are you able to share just highlights from like an agency perspective, an interagency perspective on schools that are models for students with disabilities? And I know PS15 in Red Hook was highlighted earlier this year as sort of piloting something that is new and unique, but would love to learn from you, sort of where are you all learning about how to make our schools top-notch and the best for students with disabilities, and which schools represent those needs? Thank you.
I think that's a great question, and I want to get back to you with some specific examples, but I certainly know that New York City Public Schools and DYCD saw some really beautiful examples, in particular in the past couple of summers, of students working together on activities. After school is a great environment. It's summer enrichment, and after school is a great place for inclusivity. You know, you can have people of varying levels, varying groups, varying ages, coming together to work on an activity, everybody contributing, you know, from their own personal skills. So we've seen some great activities, and I'd love to get back to you with some specific examples.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Look who's back. Councilmember Chiosei.
I've been here all along. Yeah. Good morning. I have a staffer whose parents used to work in special education, and a question that was raised when I was getting briefed for this hearing is, how is DYCD helping parents and guardians whose primary language is not English, and how are they helping parents and guardians navigate through getting some of these services?
Thank you for that question. That's a great question. We have, for a parent who's exploring services and discovered DYCD, for example, they can access that platform in multiple languages. We also use the support of the language line through Community Connect, so some people can call 1-900-246-4646, get access to translation supports in many languages, including emerging languages here in New York City, and use that as a tool for a CBO staff trying to help support a parent to translate, let's say, with a parent in that example.
I would just like to also plug in that a lot of CBOs hire and should be hiring locally from the community, and a lot of times it reflects the community. So they, more often than not, kind of speak the languages. And so even I know for a fact a lot of the group leaders and youth leaders often speak multiple languages, and they often have sessions for parents to do the applications. So I just wanted to plug that in as well.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm back. Hi, guys. I just have a couple more questions to go through. Okay, so, and just to go back to thinking about the programs that are funded, because I know we spoke a little bit specifically that there was an RFP for programs that was funding specifically with students with disabilities. Where is that located at? Because it's apparently not on the DYCD website. So how do parents make the distinction between those programs and programs that, you know, are for general education?
I think to answer that question, we're not necessarily distinguishing between programs. All programs, every program must serve students with disabilities. So every program on our site is available and open to students with disabilities.
So then my question would then be, and this goes back to the rate, there's a higher rate for students with disabilities to serve those students. So then how do we distinguish who's getting a higher rate for working with those students?
Well, that was, as I mentioned, that was like groups that were funded through a CBO. So in that case, those contracts allow for additional funding to
but that don't make
pay
sense
for
then.
supports.
Like, that don't make sense. We just literally said, like you just said, all programs serve these students, but there's a handful of programs that are getting additional funding to serve students with disabilities. So then technically everyone should be at this higher rate, or then why do we have two separate RFPs that went out? And this is not at you, this is just us thinking like this doesn't make sense.
I mean, there are some programs that are more targeted towards students with disabilities, and they are among that menu of programs. Or it's not only students with disabilities. Sometimes it's just students with some special needs, like Children of Promise or Innovate Edu or Children's Aid Society as a program targeted toward students with disabilities. So
how is it different than regular programs? So what's the difference? Because I'm trying to get at, like, I'm confused about this higher rate then, because what's to distinguish if they're all doing very similar work, but they're doing, you know, maybe a little bit more outreach to that community? What is the difference? And so then how do we then distinguish these rates for this? And how many programs were awarded from that RFP to serve students with disabilities?
64 programs.
So there's 64 programs. And what's the rate?
The rate would vary based on like what the needs of the program were expressed in their application, in their proposal.
So
varying rates.
So it varies on, oh, I didn't even know that one. I thought it was one. Okay, well, so in the regular RFP, there was no varying rates for, like, you couldn't say, like, I'm going to serve 20% of students with disabilities to get this rate, or it was just two separate RFPs. And so when we're thinking about, obviously, when we come out with a new RFP, hopefully in the next, you know, I guess 10 years, I don't know at this point, are we thinking about changing that model, because it just seems disproportionate at this point?
I definitely think we're going to welcome input on how to structure models to ensure accessibility across the board. I definitely know that DYCD looks forward to getting input, including from our agency partners, about how to structure services and contracts.
Because even thinking about, like, when you're looking at, like, school buildings, and if you're getting a school contract, if we know that, you know, 65% of the students in the school building have an IEP, why wouldn't we think about giving a percentage, making sure that we designate a percentage of those slots to students, so that, you know, we can at least try to even out, you know, this rate differences and things like that. So definitely look forward to giving a lot of input and feedback for the RFP when it comes out, because I think that we do need to get to a place where there's equity amongst how are we making sure we're serving these young people, and even when we're thinking about trainings of what does that look like, and how do we make sure, like you said, all programs have it, so then how are we making sure that everyone's equipped to be able to serve these young people? I know before you mentioned that DYCD does advertisement to everyone, and it's really inclusive, but how do we, for those 64 programs, how do we pretty much advertise those accommodations, and how do we reach out to those parents? How does that advertisement distinguish amongst the other programs, like from the other programs?
I think that's a fair question. Like I said, we have, CBOs will do their own targeted outreach and marketing campaigns. And if you're working with a specialized population, your marketing is probably more targeted and specialized. DYCD really does generalized marketing about after school, so we don't have a specialized approach. That's something we could consider.
And so just to go back to your 64, how is this broken down amongst boroughs?
I can get you the detail on that.
Yeah, because I think that's going to be really important, because even thinking about the, distinction among boroughs and which ones have higher IEPs, how are we making sure that, that there's options available across the city and not concentrated in a few places throughout the city? So I definitely would look forward to getting that breakdown amongst the boroughs. How many students with IEPs or 504s are currently enrolled in DYCD after-school programming, and does DYCD persistently have a mechanism to track those students?
No, we don't have that information at DYCD.
So we don't even track that information around like how many students we're serving with IEPs or 504s, and so that's not even tracked?
No, I think sometimes when we have a partnership program, for example, Summer Rising, I was able to share in my testimony early, 30,000 of the, more than 110,000 of young people who enrolled or students with an IEP, because DOE has, data that can provide that level of detail.
Yeah, I think, DOE is still our partners, and even not in Summer Rising, they should still be sharing that information, because I think it also is important for DYCD to have this information so that when they're providing trainings and all those things, they can also be helping providers in that way. So I think that we should not just share information when we are doing collaborative program, but they should be sharing this information consistently with DYCD. How does DOE include after-school program providers on their IEP teams? We've heard that this practice is mostly independent on the school and the school's principals. And so, we know we have these IEP teams. How are we including them? I know specifically in some of the programs that I've worked in, some of my directors were on the IEP team and will meet with the principal regularly and have these conversations, because the principal felt like it was important for them to be a part of this education team for these students. But this is really dependent upon the principal and that relationship. How are we, I haven't said it in a long time, forcing collaboration? Because I think that, in some places it works really well, in some places it does not. And so how are we trying to figure out to have more forced collaboration so that these young people can get the support that they need?
Yeah, I think that to the extent that an after-school provider can provide information that is useful and relevant to the development of the student's IEP, which is, in place during the academic school day, then they can certainly be invited. Whoever is the case manager for their IEP team, and if the parent thinks that that person can provide useful information, they can join as an optional member for the IEP team.
One, I think we should not look at the school day ending at 2:30. The school day ends when that child is picked up with their parent, whether that's at 2:30 or 5:30 or 6 or wherever that is. And I think that when we start seeing it in that way, the collaboration would be seamed a lot more seamlessly, because the after-school program does provide support for these students, and I think that we need to get to a place where we're not seeing it as separate entities. Like, we see it as separate entities, but parents and students don't see it that way. And so especially when it's in the school building and it's the after-school, and most directors, or most of the directors, are there all day from 9 to 5 in the school building, and they're a part of the school. And so we need to think about what does it look like to really make sure that, again, forced collaboration is happening in a way that we are best serving our students. How is DYCD made aware that a student enrolled in an after-school program has a disability that requires behavioral or physical accommodations?
The family enrolling would share that information with the community-based provider or with the program staff so they can provide accommodations. Sometimes that doesn't happen at the point of application. There are a lot of reasons parents don't want to share information up front.
Like they don't want their kid not to be accepted.
Sure, I think it's, it's much better for everybody involved if that information is shared up front, so we don't have to have safety challenges as you described before we make every effort to provide a safe environment, a successful environment for that young person.
And I think it's even something that Councilmember Savilas was saying earlier, that it's important that, with when they spoke about, parents knowing their rights and things like that, I think having parents know their rights up front and having an understanding of that sharing this information doesn't exclude them from the program, because I think a lot of times parents don't include the information because they're like, oh, they're not going to be allowed to come and blah, 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 blah. But realizing that if providers were able to get this information up front, it'll be a lot easier for them to actually accommodate and then work with the school, whether they need a power or things like that. And so thinking about how are we educating our parents a little bit better about the services that they can get and required. And I think, again, if we have directors on these IEP teams and things like that, that's a point of entry where they could be having those conversations and at the point of enrollment going over those things. So I think there's definitely some gray here where we have room to grow and build this out so that we can better accommodate our young people in these programs. Providers have shared that sometimes a student with disability enrolled in their programs who they cannot reasonably accommodate are then forced to be released from programs and referred elsewhere. How many students with disabilities enrolled in DYCD contractor programs, how many of those programs could not reasonably accommodate such students in 2022 to 2023 school year?
I don't have that information. I'm not aware of any situation where a young person was turned away. I really think that DYCD wants programs to understand that we want to be part of the solution with that. We want them to reach out with us. We want them to access the ADA coordinator, that we really want to play a role. If the provider is struggling to find those level of supports, we want them to reach out to us and see if there are things we can do, sometimes together with New York City Public Schools, to continue to work through those challenges. We tried this accommodation, this wasn't successful, but this part of it worked. We're going to try this different approach, that we'd love to be supportive to the CBO to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine most CBOs wouldn't want to reach out to say that they couldn't help a kid because it seems like it's a failure on their part, right? So that is, and this is something that I've spoken about a lot before. It does become hard for a provider to come to their funder, whether we like to believe it or not, to their funder and say, I can't accommodate this kid, that is too hard, because you're their funder. So I think there definitely needs to be a firewall around what does that look like and what does that process look like, because it seems like I'm not doing my job, and so I don't want to tell my funder I can't do my job because it looks crazy. But this is happening, and we can't pretend like it's not happening. And so we need to really, this is another place where that there's a clear gap that we need to be tracking it. And we can't help folks if they're not able to really have these conversations. But I understand why they wouldn't, because you're the funder, and that's kind of a hard conversation. And so yes, as much as you want to be supportive, that becomes really hard in those moments, right? And so I can see why a provider wouldn't say that, but I do think that we need to get to a place where we're tracking this so we can better accommodate and support. And just that, well, you said that you guys haven't heard of this, so you wouldn't be in contact with families who might reach out, who were asked to leave a program or who weren't able to be accommodated. And what does those conversations look like?
I am aware of a handful of situations where we're trying to provide additional support to get students. So I'm definitely aware of situations we're trying to support. Wanda actually has been supporting a program, and DYCD has been supporting the family. Do you want to share a little bit about the efforts there?
Yeah, in that particular example, I'm going to tap into some of what Susan shared earlier. There were multiple points of contact. One, the parent did reach out to our DYCD ADA coordinator. The provider reached out to me to program. And then on the ground, the provider was navigating. It was one of those situations where they do have a good working relationship with the school principal, and so the principal was able to kind of figure out, like, okay, let me see, you know, yes, and share some content, but the provider is still serving that young person. They haven't turned that young person away. In fact, they have been successfully having positive conversations with the family to talk about, okay, what are the points during the day where there may be triggers, and so they've been able to kind of talk through and navigate and learn a little bit more without the IEP, and it's more contextual because it's more like meaty. So then they were able to, you know, they purchased manipulatives because, you know, the widgets. They've added additional staff to that. It's not a paraprofessional, doesn't have that necessarily the skill set, but it's an extra person in that space.
Did you guys provide additional funding for that additional staffer?
No, they were able to use it through their existing funds in that particular example.
I will say that's nice when you're able to do that, right? Because we know that that's not always the case, and so that shouldn't be the expectation either. I'm just saying, you know, some people can do it because their programs, you know, don't have enrollment, all these different things. But, you know, I think that we shouldn't, you know, leave that on the providers to kind of figure out with the additional staff, especially when it was said that there's no para shortage. So we should be able to get a para for this young person. So we should definitely connect with DOE today so they can get a para so that they can use that funding for something else. I'm just saying. So we're almost home. We're almost done with my questions. So we know that in Summer Rising, the first year with students with disabilities, there were a lot of hiccups. But I know last year we addressed many of those hiccups. And so, but some of the issue is still around the trainings, the lack of training that was provided. Providers were saying that they were given a 2-hour virtual training on aiding students with disabilities. Providers shared that committees that they had, they didn't have hands-on training, and to learn best practice to engage, educate, and discipline students with disabilities. So can you talk about like some of the changes that you made this year around ensuring that staff was prepared to serve those students in Summer Rising, and what did those trainings look like? And were those all virtual? Did we bring them in person this year? What did that look like? So we can.
We continue to strengthen our relationship. We did many trainings through Change Impact. As I mentioned, like I can count them up, but like roughly a dozen trainings, some in person at DYCD at 2 Lafayette, some live but virtual, some asynchronous. We offered a lot of training to CBO provider staff. Acknowledge we have to keep that up. We have to continue to have staff trained. Sometimes you're not seeking out training until you're in a position where you really realize that you need some additional supports. So we do feel it's our duty to keep that training ongoing and make sure that staff have the supports they need. Also, I want to say, like Ariana's team over at DOE, they offered, this was in the Summer Rising Guide, available to everybody, on-site coaching. I think despite the fact that we said that again and again, it was probably underutilized. There were programs that said, please, like, come out to our site, tell us specifically what this should look like, what approach we should take, help model what we're gonna, how we deal with a young person. So I think we acknowledge that it has to be provided in a lot of different ways, and as we try to strengthen those approaches, we wanna make sure providers know and take advantage.
I think that the on-site coaching can be especially valuable because, as you mentioned earlier, Chair, a lot of the people that staff on the ground these programs come on board very shortly before the summer starts, and they might not be able to participate in training in May or April or whenever we start rolling out these trainings that mainly go to the program directors who are meant to turnkey it, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And so we really want to make sure that we're hitting the staff that are, the young people that are actually going to be working with these children, and making sure that they have the tools to feel confident and secure in providing the support. And so we'll continue to strengthen the support that we provide them to make sure that they that they have all the tools in their disposal.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, the first year I know that was probably one of the complaints I heard most was around, this surge of population of young people that they never served before. And then it was this expectation that, all right, well, you'll just get online. And it was challenging, and to me, what didn't feel safe, right? And because providers, are always leading with their heart and just always want to accommodate people, and it's never easy to tell a parent no, and so and did it, and did it to the best of their abilities. But I think that we definitely need to make sure that we're consistently looking at this and evaluating it. It was better this prior summer. There was less complaints, obviously, because I think we were a little bit more prepared. But I think as we're moving forward, and also understanding that summer's going to look different than it did these last 2 years, thinking about how are we preparing for those changes, what that's going to look like, and really start answering some of these questions sooner rather than later, because it does become very difficult. Those are all the questions I have. Chair Lee, are you all right? And so those are all the questions I have, and I'll turn it over to Christina too.
Thank you. We will now turn to public testimony. We will be limiting public testimony today to 3 minutes each. For in-person panelists, please come up to the table once your name has been called. For virtual panelists, once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you, and the Sergeant at Arms will set the timer and give you the go-ahead to begin. Our first in-person panel will be Nora Moran and Molly Senac. You may begin when ready.
All right, great. Thank you so much. My name is Nora Moran. I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy at United Neighborhood Houses. We represent New York City settlement houses. I feel like a lot of the points I was going to make have already been made through Q&A, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But our settlement house providers provide a lot of after-school programming in school buildings and community-based settings. Our Summer Rising providers provide a whole other host of youth development programs. This is an issue that is very important to them. I'm really glad we're having this hearing. I think overall CBOs really want to ensure access for youth with disabilities, right? We need to make sure that families who need after-school supports can get it. It is often challenging for a lot of the reasons that came up in Q&A. A couple of things just to highlight. First, in our most recent memory, I think the most intentional effort to include youth with disabilities in after-school and summer programming was Summer Rising, which was really good, right? It was a positive thing that families knew that this was available to them. It was messaged in the programming, made very public, but providers often felt like they were very unprepared and did not have the right resources and supports to adequately serve these students. Some of the specific ways that we can improve upon that next year, exploring some way for providers to get access to IEPs. We know that there's a lot of legal concerns. Maybe there's some way we can explore, right, asking parents proactively to share that information, but providers said consistently, if we didn't know that it was on the IEP and a young person was in our programming, maybe they were a runner or had some other kind of issue, a lot of unsafe safety situations, dangerous things, and there needs to be some way to try and clear that up from the beginning so we don't wind up with problems down the line. More ongoing training for providers. We know that there was some training given last year in the spring, but I know there was the on-site coaching, which was definitely really helpful for providers who took that up. But throughout the year, right, ensuring that there's consistent training supports, things that are in person, right? Sometimes people just learn better when they're not on a Zoom and they're doing 20 other things on a Zoom. And then the last thing is really making sure that their DOE has an adequate pool of paras. That was something that providers reported. There just was not enough paras, particularly at the start of the program, and so sometimes a young person would go maybe 2 weeks in before getting assigned a paraprofessional, and it was not good. We know that DOICD has another RFP coming up, and that's, I think, going to be a really important opportunity to explore how do we support this population, some things to explore, making sure that there's, the right rates for providers working with youth with disabilities, maybe if there's a specific program that's tailored for students, making sure that's publicly available, right? I don't know that our providers always know that there are specific after-school programs that are designed to serve youth with disabilities. So making sure that that information is also really public to all providers, so that way, if maybe one provider feels like they can't accommodate somebody, they know where to refer folks to. The council also can renew its autism awareness initiative, very important way to support this population. And the last thing I'd just say is that we are deeply, deeply concerned about the mayor's November mod, which included a cut to after-school programming. There are over 3,500 slots that are set to be eliminated in FY25. We can't talk about access for youth with disabilities if we can't make sure there's access for all youth to begin with. So encourage the council to look closely at that. Thank you.
Thanks for basically summing up all of our main points from the hearing.
Hi, good morning. My name is Molly Senak, and I'm testifying on behalf of Center for Independence of the Disabled New York as their education and employment community organizer. So the challenge of providing students with disabilities all of the related services they are entitled to predates the pandemic. With shortages in school psychologists, students struggle to receive the evaluations they need to determine eligibility and placement in related services, and then shortages in special education teachers limit access to those related services, and then shortages in administrators and hearings officials limit the compensatory services they are able to receive after those initial related services are not provided. So while these problems existed prior to the pandemic, virtual and remote learning greatly exacerbated them. There was a 57% drop in special education evaluations, and 24,000 students were unable to fully receive services like physical and occupational therapy, which are impossible to deliver remotely. After-school programs, whether they are launched by individual schools or whether they are centralized programs like SEED, are designed to fill those gaps. They provide services that are, for whatever reason, inaccessible during the school day. They may address children's academic needs. They might fill in gaps in therapies that schools cannot provide. They might address sensory needs that might not otherwise have a designated place within the school system to be addressed to begin with. Many New York City public school families cannot afford private tutors or therapists or lawyers to navigate the compensatory service hearings process. So these programs are a necessary option for families, especially as budget cuts and expiring federal funds force even greater reductions in what is offered during the school day. So that being said, the only questions we should be asking on how we can support these programs, not on whether or not they deserve support, obviously. So what that could look like is expanding initiatives to encourage teachers to enter special education in the first place. That way teachers aren't at the risk of burning out as they are forced to work overtime. We need to improve transportation to and from these programs. We need to improve communication and transparency between the providers of these programs and the parents of the students who will benefit from them. And we need to make funding available to outside organizations like Sydney to help provide the evaluations to identify the students who need these programs in the first place. And with these supports, we will be helping to safeguard programs that ensure students with disabilities actually receive an education that is substantive and appropriate to their needs, and evens the opportunities for success with their non-disabled peers. Thank you.
You have a question? Okay. Just really quickly, and I know, Nora, do you know the programs or the breakdown for the programs that are specifically to serve students with disabilities? Because, they said it's 64, and I'm I was interested to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I know of a few that are run by providers in our network because I know they're
Yeah.
providers,
Yeah.
but beyond, like, I even learned a couple that were mentioned on the panel that I didn't know about. And I think, too, I think it was shared those are not on Discover DYCD.
Well, yeah, they don't distinguish them on DYCD around specifically, which I found fascinating, especially because they're being paid additional money to do this. And I don't know why they just are mixing them all in and like Skittles, pick which one.
Yeah, and I know a lot of times Discover DYCD is used by like providers to help families navigate, let me find you another service or program. And so if they're maybe looking for, something that's, if they have a child they can't serve because it's not a safe setting, how are they going to find somewhere else that might, be able to serve this young person if that online access isn't, it's not, it's not distinguished in Discover DYCD.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that was one of the hardest conversations that I had to have when I had to dismiss a student and was not able to provide options. And even in the provider network, like I know a lot of providers and new folks, but still didn't know where that could be located. And honestly, I don't really know what the distinguishing of the programs were. It seemed very similar. It was like I'm kind of shuffling the young person to another program. So just thinking about that. So definitely I'm interested to see that when the next RFP come out, how do we ensure that, if we know that the school has a high number of RFP, why are we not, have a high number of students with disabilities and IEPs, why are we not then setting aside specific numbers so that we can do things like they said, oh yeah, they were able to provide another support in the room. Yes, sometimes that is the case. We might need more support, but that's not fair for the onus to be on the provider. It should be a part of the contracts. But those are the questions I have to.
First, thank you, Nora and Molly, for both being here, and I love everything that both of your organizations do, and thank you for everything and all the services you provide for the city. Very grateful. I just out of curiosity, I don't know how much you both heard about from the earlier part of the hearing, but one of the questions that we were asking the agencies was around the paraprofessionals, because I think they were saying that they had an adequate amount, but then according to, a lot of the testimonies and what Councilmember Aviles' question was around is there doesn't seem to be enough and the wait time is extremely long. And so I'm just wondering, based on your experiences and what you're hearing from your, families and providers, how is there seems to be a discrepancy.
There is a dearth of paraprofessionals. There are not enough paraprofessionals.
Okay.
There are not even close to enough paraprofessionals. Paraprofessionals are not paid enough.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes also you're not even necessarily attracting candidates who are going to care enough, because the ones who do care and the ones who are doing it because they care are likely going to be forced out. I can't remember the exact number, but I know that Councilwoman Aviles has a resolution for a prevailing wage in which she mentions that something like 75% of paraprofessionals who are planning to leave the profession are doing so because they are underpaid. And frankly, these numbers are going to get worse because a part of the push to encourage more people to enter the field of special education is creating a better pipeline to get more paraprofessionals into teaching positions, which obviously, great. We love to see more special education teachers, but you don't want to take from one supply in order to fill another.
But it's so interesting when you even say that, because it's like a pipeline that they're, even with the after school folks, they literally pull from that pool and pull them into the paraprofessional that then pull them into teaching. And so it's this weird line that we have going where everyone is just like, oh, okay, that's great. Because I know I lost a lot of my youth educators to become paraprofessionals because it's more than what we can pay and it's more hours. So.
Then one other. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just said one. So you're good. I can't speak to September to June 8 to 3 whether there's a shortage there, but for our providers, the biggest place they come into contact with paras is during summer rising, or has been in the past few years, and
they've shared there that there's not enough. And I think the big challenges for youth who only have like a IEP for the school year and not a 12-month IEP. And so then those young people, if they go into Summer Rising, would need a para assigned to them. And those are the ones that often are waiting a while. And last year, it was very uneven in terms of access, right? Some folks were matched right away, other youth had to wait. And so having like an adequate pool is really important. Everything you said about like the creating a professionalization of these careers, right? That we want people to start in them. It's a good job, grow to, move on to maybe be a teacher, whatever. But like, we have to make sure we're not just like robbing from the pool of lowest paid workers and not replenishing that.
It's also just, and when you were speaking, it's just interesting when we're thinking about like this, the pool of folks who are there and how, I just lost my train of thought, sorry. I'll remember it at some point. It was good too. Sorry.
I'll ask my other question, and maybe you can think
Okay.
You can interrupt me. Just a really quick question, because in here it says the 57% drop in special education evaluations. That seems like a lot, and that was due to the virtual remote learning, which greatly exacerbated them. And it contributed. It was already there, but it contributed. So has that gone back up to more normal-ish numbers, or?
There's been a slight uptick since the first year of the pandemic. However, as I'm sure everyone here is aware, with the expiring federal funds, a huge part of what that $7 billion was going to was school psychologists.
Yeah.
And now that, unless there is a way to replenish that funding, either at the city level or the state level, those psychologists are going to be cut again, which means that not only are we going to lose any momentum we gained in fixing a problem that was exacerbated during the pandemic, we are going to be going, even further backwards. The problem is going to get worse, not better.
Sorry, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but is it only, my question I guess is it only psychologists, or is it any mental health professional that can do the evaluation?
That's a great question.
Psychologists are harder to come by, that's why.
They are.
Yeah, but a lot
it does
of
not
share them. I thought it was school psychologists.
It does not have to be a school psychologist, but obviously the problem is what families have access to.
Right.
And so having an additional person within the school system who is able to provide those evaluations and is able to help families, like they can get an evaluation from a number of different professionals. It's just about what families have access to. And the point is that even like schools are going to be cutting a lot of those professionals. They're cutting social workers, they're cutting therapists, they're cutting school psychologists, they're cutting nurses,
Yeah, and that's something that I know on the council last year. Last year and the year before, those were things that we really fought hard to make sure that were fully funded. And it was crazy because I think at some point when we were talking to DOE during one of the hearings, they hadn't met their numbers yet, and all of a sudden in a few months they met they all of a sudden had mental health professionals in all the schools, which seemed a little of a reach to me. But then I know that they do share, because like my son's school, for example, they have the social worker there who goes to 2 or 3 different schools during the week. So I know that they have that model, but still it's I guess better than not having one at all. So that's something we need to look out for with the budget cuts coming up.
Yeah, like the fixes they found still are imperfect.
Right.
And the fact, it's always very difficult to remember what having a stuffy nose feels like when you can breathe clearly. And so because the programs are imperfect, I think a lot of people aren't realizing how bad it's going to get once those are gone.
Yep.
I remember my question. All right. So I know DOE testified today that they were not aware of a para shortage, and that if families need them, that they can get one for after school. And today it made it seem very easy, like you just call and they're like, all right, para's on its way. And I mentioned here that I ran after school for over 12 years, and then in the 12 years, I only had a para 1 year, and that was it. I ended up having to hire them because I needed to keep them on because DOE wouldn't. So can you guys talk to me a little bit about what, like around programming and kind of debunking that? Because I'm like, I know I'm not crazy. There has not been, that hasn't been an easy process to get paras in the after school program. And I know I'm not crazy, but it seemed like I was.
What I will say is that oftentimes and a lot of these stories are anecdotal rather than data-based, just because a lot of
because no one's tracking it, and it's intentionally not being tracked, which we got to today.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of what we hear parents and students talk about is the fact that usually after-school programs are tailored to the students' needs based on what the school has, rather than what the school has being tailored to based on what the student needs.
Yeah,
exactly. And so if again, I'm just speaking anecdotally, I cannot speak for what the official process is. If a school does not have a paraprofessional, then whether or not the student needs one, they will not be able to offer a sufficient number of paras.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I anecdotally, I know that this is true because I experienced it, and I'm like, did something change in the last 2 years? And I don't think it has, but.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, right, before this hearing, we asked a lot of our providers, like, what does this look like for you? And it was, I think, very similar to your experience when you were a provider, right? That sometimes it happened, but rarely not. And I think the thing we heard from our providers overall is that with school year after school, with summarizing, the really biggest variable is your relationship with your principal. And so if you have that solid relationship with your principal and school leadership, support for all students, but especially for students with disabilities, is going to look a lot better than in schools where that relationship is not as strong, or maybe it's just non-existent. And so, that's not been, from what I've heard from our providers, that's not necessarily been their experience, right? That like 3 o'clock comes, this child needs a paraprofessional, you call up, the person's there right away. Like it's not been like that. But
the way they mentioned it, it seems very seamless and effortless. And I was just like, what? Am I crazy? So I'm not, thank you.
Right. But it also, like our providers shared, like, sometimes we're just not equipped to serve youth with disabilities in after school, especially. Yeah. And so we have to refer families elsewhere. And so
the referring elsewhere always also gets me, because no one knows any of these programs. And honestly, they seem like the same program.
Yeah. So, right. And referring elsewhere isn't necessarily like I'm referring you to this other Compass provider, right? It might be like trying to explore, I don't know what kinds of supports you might be able to find for a young person, but it's hard. There's not really a lot of support out there for these families.
Yeah. That has been my experience, and like I had mentioned before, this is one of the things that I think that we don't talk about enough, and it's been in the closet per se for a while, and definitely want to make sure we continue exploring this topic. But I don't have any more questions for this panel, so thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you guys being here. It's very helpful.
Thank you. That concludes our in-person testimony. We will now transition to remote testimony, and our first virtual panelist will be Nisa Jones. You may begin when the sergeant starts your clock.
Time starts now.
Hi, my name is Nisa Jones. I'm a student at the CUNY School of Public Health, and I just wanted to gear your attention to a different issue, more so the nutritional state of children in my neighborhood. The battle against childhood obesity has been an ongoing one in the United States as health agencies, political officials, and community activists work together in order to develop policies to tackle the phenomenon head on. overwhelming amount of research has proven that the main driver of preventable illness from diet-related diseases and premature death in children and young adults is the overconsumption of sugary beverages that are high in calories, unhealthy foods, and a lifestyle that lacks physical activity. Through the use of misleading and predatory marketing, the food industry exerts a heavy influence on the physical and social environments where children spend most of their free time, including social media spaces, thus influencing them to make unhealthy nutritional choices on a consistent basis, both inside and outside of school settings. The childhood obesity epidemic in the United States has been on a steady incline for the last 2 decades, with children of Black and Latinx communities being disproportionately affected, and 15 to 19.4% of the children in New York are overweight, and an additional 22 to 27% are considered obese. While children do not maintain the abilities to decipher between marketing that is factual and those that are not, and while it is inherently the responsibility of parents and guardians to enforce healthy practices, it is very hard for parents to compete with the compelling and illuminating advertisements that are constantly being presented to their children in and out of their presence. So, as technology advances, the ways in which big food companies connect to their children also advances, thus making it harder for both children and parents to identify. Introduced by Assemblymember Karine Reyes, there's currently a bill under review, Bill A422 4B, that provides enforcement and provides a private right of action. The program helped to receive recommendations from the Department of Agriculture, Health and Human Services, and the CDC in order to promote nutritional education in the households and in after-school programs and prompt regular physical activity. I would just like for you guys to all consider supporting the bill, and as it getting into the state level, it will help to discourage the dissemination of false food marketing across New York State and encourage healthier lifestyle choices in our youth. I hope to gain community and policy support in order to help with the fight to eradicate childhood obesity. So, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We have 2 more virtual panelists signed up, but I'm not sure if they're on, so I'll just call their names. Diane Colonna and Tameen Ula. We're just going to pause for a brief 5 minutes.
I would like to acknowledge Councilmember Williams. Thank you for joining us, and apparently she has a comment.
Thank you, chairs. I just wanted to talk about the fact that I do have a staffer who was part-time for pretty much a year, and she was a paraprofessional, and she was very stressed out and burnt out and decided to come work with me for full-time. So it's very real, and she is still very traumatized from being a para. So.
Okay, that concludes our virtual testimony. If we missed anyone who would like to testify virtually, please raise your hand and I will call on you in the order of hands raised. Seeing no one else, I would like to note that written testimony, which will be reviewed in full by committee staff, may be submitted to the record up to 72 hours after the close of this hearing by emailing it to testimony@council.nyc.gov, and I will turn it back to the chair for closing statements.
Like I mentioned a number of times today, that this hearing was very near and dear to me because when I was a provider, this was something that I did not feel like that was being addressed. And even from today's hearing, I think that there is so much work to be done at making sure that we are providing support to students with disabilities to receive after-school funding after-school support, and also making sure that providers are adequately trained and staffed in order to provide this service. Like I said, there's a lot of work to be done, and I think that we're going to continue to work with DYCD and DOE and MOPD to really think about how do we dig in and to provide a service that should have been being provided for all of these years. So I look forward to the continued collaboration with Chair Lee, and thank you for your hard work and all committee staff. But this is the conclusion of this hearing, however, not a conclusion of this topic, and we will continue to work to ensure that students with disabilities have the same access as all students throughout the city. So thank you everyone for here, and with that, I conclude this hearing.